Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Finland once again, and that of course means that we're going to have a look at yet another beer from the latest instalment of the Riku box. So first and foremost, a massive shout out and thank you to Riku Sanaho, my Finnish beer mule. It's thanks to him that you guys get to enjoy some Finnish reviews here on the channel. He always picks me out some really interesting stuff. The beers that we've had from this box so far have been pretty damn good, and we've got a few other interesting things to work our way through over the next little while. I've been enjoying reviewing these things. I hope that you guys have been enjoying the videos as well. And yeah, a massive keepies and kiitos to Riku for sorting all these beers out for me. But the one that we're going to have a look at today is from a brewery that has featured on the channel before. We've had some really interesting beers from them over the last while actually, and I think it's fair to describe this brewery as being very strong all round. I don't think we can really pick out any one style that they're particularly well known for, but yeah, all their beers are pretty damn good. But the one that we're going to look at today is a style that I've never tried before. It's a sub-style as well that I hadn't even heard of actually, so we'll need to investigate that a little bit when going forward with the channel. But this is also a beer that Riku gifted to me, and I think the main reason that he gifted this one to me was that it's a very unique Finnish taste, and he thought this would make for quite an interesting video to try because it's different to everything else that I've had on the channel previously. So yeah, we'll just need to see what this has in store for us. But as I say, I know this brewery is pretty solid. Riku always gives me some good beers, so I have to say my interest is quite piqued with this beer. So yeah, hopefully it's another good one. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to return to Espoo, next to Helsinki, the Finnish capital in the south of the country, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Salama Brewing Company, or Lightning Brewing Company as it would be in English. But this particular beer is called Green Goozer. It comes in at 5.5% ABV. Salama Brewing Company are describing this one as a candy sour, which is something I've never heard of, but I'm guessing it will just be like a very, very sweet sour. But they also say on the can that it is a Philly sour as well. But from what I gather, the flavour of this beer is based on a Finnish sweet produced by Carl Fazer, who do lovely milk chocolate, by the way. Do try that if you get the chance. But the sweet is called Viriat Kulat, if I've pronounced that correctly. It's this little green ball, and apparently these are pear marmalade flavours. So yeah, this beer is a sour based on those Finnish sweets, and I think that is why Riku was quite curious for me to try this one. I have to say, I do love the kind of Ghostbuster style artwork on this beer as well. But yeah, Riku certainly has a history of picking me out really interesting things, so I'm sure this one will be no exception. But yeah, a 5.5% candy sour, whatever that's going to be. They also describe it as a Philly sour, which is one that uses a special yeast strain, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the video. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what we have. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Salama Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer based on the geography tagging system. So use the search bar, search for your home county, country, state, province, prefecture, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from your area, they should pop up. And remember that you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries, and you'll find this one in the Finnish playlist along with many other things. But yeah, let's crack on then and chat a little bit about Salama Brewing Company before we taste the beer. So, as I've mentioned to you already, Salama Brewing Company are based in Espoo in Finland, right next to Helsinki, the Finnish capital, and the company was founded back in 2019 by a group of friends. So, the men behind this company are Christian Holmlund, Jaakko Ailio, Johannes Järvinen, and Ville Sarikoski. So, Christian is the CEO of the company and has a background in running small and medium enterprises, while Jaakko is the brewer and Johannes takes care of the bureaucracy side of things. But Ville is the art director of the company, and you know, these guys have made a pretty damn good name for themselves in Finland. But the brewery itself is very close to the IKEA and Jorvi Hospital, which is out to the north of Espoo. Their brewing equipment came from China, and they've got a theoretical capacity of 130,000 litres, but they brewed around 50,000 litres during their first year. But they recently opened a kind of terrace at the brewery where you can buy cans and sit out there and enjoy the beers. We did go and visit that during the summer of 2022, so if you're interested to see that, you can look at my out and about video for Salama Brewing Company. You can also see their bar in the centre of the city as well. But these guys focus on quite a few different styles of beers. Initially, they were focusing on the things like pale ales, IPAs, double IPAs, also producing a few sour beers like this one as well. But in more recent times, they've been experimenting with the bigger, maltier and darker things as well. So there's a lot of imperial stouts out there, and they have been playing around with barrel aging as well. You will see some videos like this over the next week while we've got a wheat wine, a barley wine and an imperial stout to look at from these guys, so keep your eyes peeled for those. But apparently they export around 70% of their output, and yeah, they're just working to expand the brewery capacity and to build up their sales over the next little while. But as of November 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 175 different kinds of beer, and as I mentioned, it's quite difficult to pick out exactly what style Salama are best known for, because they do a lot of different things and they always tend to be pretty damn solid actually. But the name of the brewery, Salama, translates into English as Lightning Brewing Company, and you can see that on the brewery symbol, which you'll see in just a second. But that's all I can really tell you about Salama Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on then and have a wee look at this beer itself. So like I said to you, this one comes in at 5.5% ABV. Salama Brewing Company are describing it as a candy sour. I also have a beer from Epco, which I'll review in a few videos time, which is listed as a candy sour. This particular style is something that I've only seen from Finnish breweries so far. So yeah, let me know if in your country there are candy sours too. But they also say on the can that this beer is a Philly sour. So I did a little bit of research on this to figure out what a Philly sour actually is. And the notes that I got on this one, Philly sours use a unique strain of Lactantia, which produces both lactic acid and ethanol in the primary fermentation. So it's basically, Philly sours use a slightly different type of yeast, not the usual lactobacillus or Brettanomyces or anything like that. But yeah, as I say, this beer is based on a Finnish sweet called Viljat Kulat, which is a pear marmalade little green ball thing. So yeah, it should be quite interesting. But as you can see, the Ghostbusters style artwork on this one is really quite nice, I have to say. You can see he's got Salama in his glasses there. You've got a little bit of lightning. You can see plain top on the can there, and there you can see the Salama lightning cloud symbol. So yeah, a 5.5% candy sour based on a famous Finnish sweet. This should be quite interesting. Let's get this guy out and get on with the tasting then. I'm really not sure what to expect from this beer. My first ever Philly sour and my first candy sour as well. So yeah, we'll see what this has in store for us. This should be pretty cool. And it's even green itself. So yeah, the only other beer I've had that was this colour, I think, was it was the Berliner Kindle was it called Waldmeister, the Forest Master. It was a colour like this, but this looks pretty crazy, I have to say. I've never seen a beer that is quite as green as this. So I think we've maybe got about 60% of this beer out of the can and into the glass, but it should be pretty cool. As you can see, and maybe here, the carbonation is pretty active in this one. So you can see the beer poured with well over a finger of a frothy kind of green tinted head. Just look at that, that's fading away very, very quickly. We'll see about putting the rest of the beer, or some of the other beer, into the rest of the beer into the can there, or into the out of the can into the glass, I should say. But yeah, you can see the carbonation on this one is quite interesting. But yeah, I'm really not sure how to describe the colour of this one. It really is like, it's pretty much the same as the can. It's a kind of light, I wouldn't even describe this as a forest green. It's like a sort of candy apple green colour, this one, but you can see it's pretty crazy actually. It does look pretty nice. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the surface. The surface just pretty much has a few bubbles around the edge of the glass now, but it's crystal clear. In terms of the haziness and things of this beer, it comes across more as being kind of unfiltered rather than anything else. I don't know if it says on the can exactly what ingredients they've used in this one. Yeah, so this one, it contains barley malt, wheat, oats, and lactose. So yeah, I don't know if it's going to be like some kind of smoothie sour or something like that in this case, but yeah, certainly very, very unusual with that kind of lime, sort of lime green, candy apple green colour, whatever we would describe this as being. It's quite unusual in that sense. But remember, the colour of these beers, when it comes to the sour beers like this, it depends on a few things. Obviously, you've got your malt base and the type of malts that you use. This is going to go a long way to determining your EBC rating. Length of your wort boil will also affect the colour of the beer as well. But when it comes to sour beers, you have to think about barrel aging and also any adjuncts that you put in it. If they've put these kind of green Carl Fazer little ball things into it, it's not really a surprise that you've got this really bright green colour actually. So yeah, maybe this was a Halloween beer that they released. I don't know. I've got a feeling that it might have been, because when I felt the can it was a little bit harder. So maybe it's yeah, maybe it was a Halloween beer that they released. But it certainly looks quite interesting, I have to say that. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else we can really say about the appearance of this beer. So we'll have a wee look at the aroma and just see what it has in store for us. But yeah, this is pretty crazy, this one, for sure, in terms of appearance. But yeah, I mean, aroma-wise, there's actually not too much to kind of report on this one. It's certainly not the most pungent and punchy of aromas, but yeah, it's certainly, I have to say, it certainly is quite interesting. So on the, it's got a little bit of sweetness to it. You can get a little bit of the malty character. There's not much in the way of hoppiness to this beer actually. Yeah, this is really quite unusual. So yeah, let's just try and break this down and see how we can describe it. The backbone of the beer, you've got a little bit of a kind of bread crusty character in there. You do get a little bit of white bread out of this one. Maybe a little bit of wholemeal brown bread as well. One or two very slightly woody notes. But on top of that, you've got a kind of syrupy. On top of that, you know, you do have a kind of syrupy, you do have a kind of syrupy, sugary sort of thing. There's maybe a little touch of that kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing, but then it does have a little bit of that kind of sort of lemony sherbet type note, but it's not like a lemon sherbet, it's some other kind of sherbet. You do get a lot of this candied character, but yeah, a little bit of bread crust, brown bread, wee touch of white bread. Those are quite minimal incidentally, but yeah, you don't get much in the way of creaminess or sort of vanilla yogurty type flavours that you often get from, say, the likes of Elma Livin and things here in Sweden. It's definitely not a smoothie sour, this one. It's actually a little bit more like a kind of very light Berliner Weisse or something like that. So maybe this candy sour is a new, as it could be regarded as a new style. I do get more and more graininess out of this beer the more that I smell of it though. But yeah, above that, there's a little bit of kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch, and maybe a wee hint of biscuit, but you've obviously got these kind of candy sugars in there as well. Yeah, in terms of the hoppy side of this beer, I don't think this one has hops in it, and that's just from what I've smelled in the aroma. Does it have hops in it, this beer? No, apparently. Oh no, it does have. It says in German, Hopfen. So yeah, apparently it does. It doesn't say it in Swedish though, which is kind of interesting. It doesn't say it in English either, but it just says Hopfen in German. So yeah, really not sure, but on the basis of the aroma, I don't think this one has hops in it. if it does, it would be very, very light in that sense, or the candy is just dominating the aroma. But there's certainly a little touch of earthiness to this beer. You do get a little touch of herbal quality and little light sort of wet grassy notes as well. Maybe a wee hint of floral character. But yeah, the way it goes together is very, very nice in that sense. So yeah, aroma wise, this beer I have to say is pretty damn interesting. Really unusual in terms of the fruitiness. You know, you have got this sort of like fresh green apple to it. Obviously it's very candied, and I'm guessing the aroma is very similar to this sort of pear marmalade sort of thing. You do get a little bit of real pear out of this. There's a little bit of kind of sultana, you know, dry white green grapes in there. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is quite difficult to describe because it's really not like anything that I've come across before. The only thing I can think to compare it to would be some sort of like sherbet, but it's not lemon sherbet, of course. Or, you know, like we've got sweets in Scotland which are called sour plumes, which are also little green ball things. I don't think they're plum flavoured though, rather than pear. But yeah, maybe it's the same idea. But regardless, this is really quite unusual, I have to say. But this is what you want after you've reviewed 3,600 beers. You want things that are going to make you think a little bit and test you. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of these beers before you get stuck in. But this is certainly very unusual for me, and you can tell that from the colour of the beer. So yeah, let's just have a taste of this and see what we have. Big thank you to Riku for giving me this beer. This is the Green Goozer, a 5.5% candy sour based on the Virjet Kulat sweets, pear marmalade balls, basically little green things from Karl Fazer in Finland. Love their milk chocolate. We'll need to see if I love this. But yeah, let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers, kipis. Oh, that's interesting. That really is. Yeah, I guess the first thing to say is I don't hate it, which is always a good sign. But yeah, it's certainly first impression of this beer, just from the first sip, it really has a good little bit of sharpness to it. It's like fizzy sweets. Yeah, this is really interesting for sure. But yeah, the I can see why they call this a candied sour. It's certainly not like the big kind of smoothie sours that we get from the likes of Duck Pond, Elm 11, Morgendagens and guys like that over here. It really isn't like that. This one is actually more like a kind of, it feels in some ways like a Berliner Weisse, but like a very light and almost slightly crisper Berliner Weisse. It's got this really wet bready character underneath, but yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is quite is really quite nice. But yeah, it really, yeah, it does. The flavour of this one really does remind me of sour plumes, sour plume sweets. Um, I can see what they're going. I see why they say, you know, why they make this thing and call it a candy sour. It really is quite unusual and really quite interesting. It gets a thumbs up for me, this beer. I'm not sure that I could drink the whole thing myself. I'm glad I've got a friend to share this with actually. But it's certainly an interesting beer, and yeah, it's just very unusual. I'd be very curious to know how popular these candy sours are in Finland actually. But let me know if you're watching from other countries and you've come across candy sours and Philly sours and stuff like this. Yeah, do let me know this, because you're getting quite a few different sub-styles of sour beer these days. The Barcelona Weiss and all of this kind of thing. But yeah, let's try and break this beer down a little bit and just describe it a wee bit more in depth. It's certainly not a conventional beer, this one. So yeah, it's nice, but as I say, for me, this is more a tasting beer. I don't know if I'm going to be able I certainly wouldn't be able to drink the full can of this myself, that's for sure. But yeah, let's focus on the beer then and break down the flavour. Middle third of the palate. So, Backbone of the beer, you get a little bit of this kind of wholemeal brown bready bread crust. Absolutely, you're getting that in there. On top of that, there's a little bit of kind of wholemeal brown bread. So a little bit of that in there, and a little bit of white bread on top of it too. But yeah, the whole breadiness, it's kind of surrounded by this sort of wet, sherbety type flavour. So you've got those bready notes in there. They take a little bit of time to come out into the aftertaste, but as I say, the whole thing, it just feels like it's surrounded by sherbety flavour, which is really quite interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've ever come across a beer that's quite like this, I have to say. Um, yeah. So the whole, as I say, that whole bready character is just surrounded by this wet, almost like sherbety flavour, and you can feel in that it definitely comes across as like a sort of. I can see, that if we say this sweet is based on pure marmalade, you can certainly get that out of this beer, and the sweet candy flavours really linger into the aftertaste. Now um, above all of that, um, above all of that, the kind of bready layer, you do get a wee bit of sweetness out of this beer. You can feel like in the dead centre of your palate, you've got a lovely little bit of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy sort of thing. And as you move further out from that, you start to get a little bit of a more kind of McVitie's digestive, biscuity sort of flavour. So yeah, this beer is actually quite straight shooting in a lot of ways. I do actually, toward the front of that middle third of the palate, there's a little touch of kind of vanilla flavour coming out of this beer as well. But yeah, this really it's certainly not like the probably the sweetest and juiciest sours that I've come across so far have been those from the likes of Elma Living here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. But this is certainly something different. It really has this sherbety type quality to it. It's a very straight shooting beer. I do quite like it as a taster, but if you're not used to this style, it's a little bit hard to drink, I have to say that. So yeah, this is the sort of beer for me that you would get in a pub. You'd get this as a little 100 ml or 150 ml taster and just enjoy it that way. It's not something that I would want. I think this is something that I wouldn't want to drink a full can of, in a sense. But as I say, it's my first impression of a Philly sour or a candy sour, if you like. So I'm curious to see what the Echo one is like and see if it's kind of similar, because it's just like really light sherbet. It's this really light, slightly Berliner Weisse sherbety type flavour that comes out of this beer. Yeah, really unusual, but quite interesting to try, I have to say. So in terms of the middle third of the palate, I think that's everything we need to say. Let's look at the back third of the palate and see what we have with this one. So, in terms of that back third of the palate, then the border region between middle third and back third of the palate, you do get a little bit of a kind of white bready build up there. The base of the back third of the palate, there's a wee touch of bread crusty character in there, and you can feel it's a little bit drier and a little bit more grainy. On top of that, you've got the kind of brown wholemeal bready sort of thing in it that's a bit more dense, and then above that, you've got a little bit of a more white bready character as well. So you can feel those flavours are tall. You've got a little bit of that kind of more airy wholemeal bready sort of thing, a little bit of a more airy white bready character on top of that, and there is a wee bit of the kind of wheaty note coming out of this beer as well. The wheat's actually very smooth. Maybe we didn't mention that in the middle third of the palate. You can feel some of the oaty smoothness in there. But yeah, like I say, this beer really is, it's like a Berliner Weisse with a bunch of sherbet in it. That's kind of how this beer comes across to me. Above all of those layers on the back third of the palate, though, you've got a wee bit more of an airy yeasty note to it. There's a little bit of an airy white bready note, a little bit of honeycomb. But yeah, the way this beer goes together in that sense is quite nice. But yeah, back third of the palate, you can certainly feel the flavour is taller, and then as you come further forward on this one, it just condenses down that wee bit more. and squashes together. So yeah, the way that this beer goes about its business, it's quite interesting. I get the feeling like, when I first tried sour beers, I didn't like them that much. I do wonder if this is maybe a style I need to try a few examples of and just get used to. But yeah, I think for me, this sort of idea of the candied sour and that sort of sherbety quality it has, it's maybe just a little bit too much to have in liquid form. Like if this was a sweet, like a boiled sweet, I would love the flavour of this, I'm sure. But yeah, having it in liquid form, maybe I feel that's maybe something I can't get on board with actually. But yeah, let's look at the hoppy side of the beer then. As I said earlier, it's a bit confusing with this beer because they've got hops listed in German but not in English or Swedish. Does it have it in Finnish? I think they say humala in Swedish, but in Finnish, sorry, they don't have that. Yeah, so I really don't know if this beer has hops in it, but I suspect from the flavour it doesn't. But at the same time, you do get a little bit of this placebo. There's a little touch of placebo earthiness and herbal quality there. As you reach the front corners of the palate, that progressively becomes more, slightly floral in a way. And then round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more sort of grassy and slightly zesty. But like I say, the smoothness that you get out of this beer in that regard makes me think that it's more of a kind of it makes me think that it doesn't have any hops in it. And this is always a big debate when it comes to the modern sour beers like this. Do you put hops in them and add a little bit more complexity to the flavour, or do you leave them out because, it might detract a little bit from the sour side of the beer? That's the big debate among brewers who focus on these newer modern types of sour beer. But yeah, this one, I don't think this has hops in it, but you still get a little bit of the placebo effect for sure. Let's focus on the front third of the palate and the flavours we're getting out of there. But yeah, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate in this beer, you get a nice little bit of, you do get a little touch of kind of bready build up in there, but again you get this sort of sherbety type quality mixing in with it. The beer is really sweet and just sherbety all out. The base of that front third of your palate, you've got a wee bit more of the, you get a little bit of the smooth, you get a little bit of the bread crust, a bit of the smooth white bread, and on top of that you've got some kind of oily fruity notes in there. So at the back of that front third of your palate, it's a little bit more of a kind of oily sultana, like dry white green grapes, maybe a little bit of pear, and then as you push further forward, I think the beer has a little touch of a gooseberry note to it. But again, on top of all of that, you just have this big, almost sherbet, lemony sherbet type quality, which I'm guessing it's like a pear. You do get that sort of very sweet candied pear note out of this one, which makes sense when you think about what candy this beer is based on. So I'm sure this one you can kind of tell that it's the flavour of this beer is very close to the candy that it's modelled upon. But as I say, in boiled sweet candy form, I would enjoy that, I'm sure. But in liquid, in terms of a sour beer, I'm not overly convinced, I have to say. Yeah, we'll need to see. We've got another candy sour to look at from Echo Brewing, but maybe this is one of these styles that just, it's maybe one of these styles that either takes a bit of getting used to, or it's maybe just not going to work. You never know. And, I don't know, as I say, this beer certainly has got me in a sense, because it does remind me of some of the very sweet, fizzy, juicy sodas, whatever you want to call them, that you'll get from the US, like, the Minute Maid pink lemonade and regular lemonade and all this kind of thing. It's really got that sort of very sweet American kind of fruit juice type, sort of soda juice type vibe to it. So I can see what they're going for with this one, but it also has a little touch of a kind of Berliner Weisse, like an old school proper Berliner Weisse quality to it. So it's kind of like that in the base, but then it's got an American soda quality on the top. And I'm not sure that these two things fit together that well for me, but that it depends on you, maybe your palate, you guys watching the channel, that works for your palate. So this is something that has tasted my palate, but I'm not sure that it's for me. But we'll try a couple more of these beers. We'll go into them with an open mind and just see what we think. So an interesting impression of the candy sour, or the Philly sour, I guess we could say as well. But yeah, this one, I would struggle to finish this off myself, I have to say that. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to kind of say about the flavour of this one. The only other thing we could add is that the impact in this beer, it's got a lovely little bit of kind of sharpness and tartness and things to it, so you get that on the front tip of your tongue and it mellows out a little bit. And for me, that's always the mark of a good sour beer, is how the beer mellows out. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I think this beer is kind of mid-bodied. It's right in the middle of the spectrum. The carbonation smooth. It's got a little bit of oily slickness to it. It's quite clean at the same time. But like I say, the malt base in this beer, there's a bit of breadiness. You've got this kind of, you know, frothy, sherbety type note in the malt base there as well. There's a little bit of sweetness for sure. And then you've got all these kind of, you've got a little bit of sharp tartness from the fact that it's a sour beer. And you've also got the kind of more oily side of the fruits as well. So yeah, the way this beer goes together, I think, is really quite nice. But yeah, I don't know if this candy sour style is something that suits me, to be honest with you. We will try a few more of these over the next wee while. I would enjoy this flavour in a sweet, as I said, but in terms of like a sour beer, I'm not sure about this one actually. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this review. The Green Goozer, a really interesting one. I do like the flavour of the beer in some ways. Like I like the kind of combination of flavours, but the sort of sherbety notes that this beer has, which I'm guessing is maybe inherent with the candy sour, just maybe isn't for me. But yeah, I'm sure Salama Brewing Company have done this beer well and true to style, but this probably just isn't for me, I have to say that. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that, as we said. So this one was the Green Goozer, a 5.5% candy/Philly sour from Salama Brewing Company in Espoo in Finland. A really interesting beer. I can see why Riku wanted me to try this one. But yeah, we'll need to see what the next candy sour has in store for us and see whether it's kind of like this. Maybe just not a style for me. But yeah, certainly this is not going to put me off trying other beers from Salama Brewing Company. We've had some really great stuff from them, and we've got some of the big beasts to look at in the next videos as well. But yeah, if you like Fazer's sort of pear marmalade little balls, have a go at this beer and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. But once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Salama Brewing Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys at some point very, very soon. Until the next time, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out Salama Brewing Company's social media, and we will return very soon with more finished beer reviews. Keep pace, Kitos, and see you soon.